Hi everyone, welcome to the session. So in this session, we are going to create a to-do list app, and this is how it is going to look like. So here, if you see, I can add any task here. If I add a task and click on add task, it will show me the task getting added. And if I add another task, it will add another task, and then I can delete the task, and even I can mark it as completed. Okay. If I click on this checkbox, it is adding a line through. And if I want to clear everything that has been added, I can just click on clear all. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get started with it. So I've already created a folder and all the three files, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So let's just get started with the HTML. I'll add the boilerplate code first. And here, let's give it a title as to-do list app. In the body tag, we are first going to create a container. Okay, so app container. So there'll be a div here, and inside the div, let's just first give a heading. Okay, so H1. If I save this and let me refresh this once. Okay, so we have the heading now. Now let's create the input container. Okay, so first of all, I'll create another div. Inside this div, I'm going to create an input box wherein user will be typing in the task, right? So let's keep the type as text itself, and I'll give it an ID as task input, and then let's also give it a placeholder, what needs to be done, and question mark. Okay, and let's save it. So we have the input box now. All right, now let's create a button as well to add the task, and here we'll keep the button name as add task, and let's give this button an ID. Okay, so add task button, and I'll save this. So I have the button now. And now after, outside this div, right? So when somebody enters something and clicks on this button, I want to display that value as a list, right? In the form of a list. So here I'm going to create a placeholder for that. Okay. So I'm just going to create a list here, and I'll just give it as ID. And here I'm going to give this a name as task list. Okay. And we are not giving any li elements. So if you remember from one of the previous sessions, we saw, right, how we can dynamically add the elements using create element method of document object, right? So that's what we are going to do here. So here we are not adding any li elements. Okay, we'll keep it blank because we are going to get the values dynamically. All right, and then after this we have to create a button, and this would be to clear all the values. So clear all, and let's give this button an ID, clear all button, and we'll also give it a class. All right, okay, and now let's just do one more thing. Let's link the CSS file and also the JavaScript file. So link and then style.css, and I'll also include the script file. So script, and let's just save this. Now let's just go to the CSS file and start styling this. Okay, so I'll go to the CSS file, and then at last we'll implement the JavaScript. Okay, so let me just shift it a little bit. So here, let's just first style the body tag. Okay, I'm not going to explain a lot about CSS, so I hope that you have some basic idea. All right, so body tag, and here we are going to give a background color, and I already have the color code, so I'm just going to use that. Okay, so here this is the background color, and then I'm going to use the flex box, so that is why I'm giving display as flex, so that I can align items as center, and then also justify content as center. Save this. So see, this has shifted to the right, and then let's also give it a height of 100 VH from the port. So height 100 VH. Now it will shift a bit in the center, so it has come here now. Let's give a font family. I'll give this itself, which is fine, and then let's give the text color as something else. Okay, because right now it's not visible, and this is fine. Okay, all right, so we have this much now. Now let's just style the app container. So I'll copy this. All right, and I will just take this and start styling this. So now because I've given the background color as a dark color, right? So it's not visible that what changes I'm going to be making here. So I'm going to flip the color for now, but then we'll flip it back to this one. Okay, so let me just make it a bit lighter for now, so that you'll be able to see the changes. All right, so in the app container, let's give a width of 100%. All right, now I'll also give the max width as, let's say, around 500 pixel. Okay, and then let's give a padding of 30 pixel, and then let's give a background color. We save this, so now there's a background color to it. Let's give a border radius to smoothen the corners. Okay, so border radius, I'll give it as 12 pixel. All right, so now you can see the corners are smooth now. And let's just give text align as center, because everything right now is coming on the left, right? So let's just keep it center. Okay, so the text is shifted to center now. Now I'll give the border top. So border top, and let's give it something as 5 pixel and then solid, and I'll also give it a color. Okay, so here, so you see there's a border now, right, with a different color. All right, and I've also given like a measure for the border, and let's also change the color. So I'll give a color, right? So this was about app container. Now let's just style the input container. Okay, this one, what needs to be done? So I'll go here, and this is my input container, right? So I'll take this, I'll go back to the css dot input container, and I'll just make the display as flex. Okay, and let me save this. All right, so that, and then let's just give it a gap of 10 pixel. Okay, so there's a gap now between the button and the input container, right? And let's also give a bottom margin. Okay, I want some space between these, so margin bottom, and let's give it as 20 pixel. If I save this, not sure if it created any change, but it's fine. Okay, now I want to style this one, input type text. Okay, so I'll go here, and this is my input tag, right? So input, okay, here input, and then this is the one that we want to style. Okay, so that is why I'm giving it like this. So let's give it a flex 1. Okay, so it has expanded now, and then after this let's give a padding of 15 pixel. Okay, so now it has, like, it has created some padding from all the corners, and then I'll give a border 4 pixels solid, and then let's also give a color. Okay, it's not visible, but it's okay, I mean, because the background has a bit similar color, right? Let's also smoothen the corner for this one, so we'll give a border radius of 8 pixel, around 8 pixel is fine. Okay, so see, the corners are smooth now. I'll also change the font size to this. I mean, I want it a bit bigger, so I'll change it to 1 rem, and if I save this, so the font is changed now. Okay, and the outline, I think there's an outline here, right? So let's just try and make it as none. It's fine. Okay, now let's just also change the focus. Okay, so if I click on this, I want the border to, like, kind of get highlighted. So for that, what we'll do, we'll just take this first. Okay, and then we'll use a property of focus. So this, and then focus, and here what are we planning to do? We just need to change the border color. Okay, so border color, and that's it. Okay, so if I click on this now, see, the border color is changing, right? So this is fine. Now let's just style the button. Okay, so right now if I show you the button, it is looking like this. Okay, so let's just style the button. So we can just take the button tag itself. Okay, and then we can style it directly because there's just one button. So first of all, we'll give it a padding 15 pixel, around 15 pixel is fine, I guess. And then let's just give it a background color. Okay, this is fine. Let's change the text color to a bit lighter one. I mean, it's fine. Okay, let's make the border as none, and then we'll give a border radius to make the corners a bit smooth. In the border radius, I'm going to give 8 pixels. Okay, now this looks better. We need to change the font as well. So font size, and I'll make it as 1 rem. So this looks better now. And let's just make it bold. Okay, so font weight, and I'll make it bold. Okay, looks much better. And also the cursor, I need to change the cursor. Okay, if I hover over this, I want this cursor to get changed to like a finger pointer cursor. Okay, cursor. Okay, yeah, it was giving me that option, pointer. All right, so if you see now, it is getting changed. All right, so, and also we can change the color on button hover as well, right? So let's just do that as well. So button, and here we can change the color on the hover. So background color, and then I'll give a code, color code here. If I save this, if I hover, see, the color is getting changed. Okay, and also when I add a task and I click on add task, the list item that it is going to show, right, we need to style that as well. So you know what we can do, because we need to see the list items, right, so that we can style it better. So let's just first go to JavaScript and implement the functionality that, like, if user enters something here and clicks on add task, so that we should be able to see the list items. So once we are done doing that, then we can come back and then style the list items. All right, so I'll move to the JavaScript file. So here, first of all, we will take all the HTML references of all the elements. So what and all do we need in our JavaScript file? We need the reference for this input box. We'll need that, right? Because we need the value which user would be entering here. So we will need the reference for this input box. Then we will also need the reference for this button, right? Because we would need to add a listener to this button, that when user clicks on this button, then give us the value whatever is entered here, right? So we need this element as well, and then we need this element as well to clear out everything in the list. And then apart from from that, if I go back to the HTML, we need this as well, right? Because this is where we are going to append the list items, right? Which we are going to create dynamically from the JavaScript. All right, let's go back to JavaScript, and then first let's just take all the elements, right? Whatever is required. So here I'll create a variable task input, and here document dot get element by ID. And what's the ID of the task input? It's this, right? So I'll go here. So we have this element now. Let's also take the button. Okay, so const and add task button, and here document dot get element by ID. And what's the ID for this button? This is the ID. So we'll copy this and we'll paste it here. Okay, and then after this we need the list, right? So const, and I'll mention it something as task list document dot get element by ID. Let's take the ID for the list as well, which is this. Okay, so I got this now, and then we also need the reference for this button, clear all button. Okay, so here clear all button, and here document dot get element by ID. And what's the ID for this button? It's this. Okay, so we'll copy this and then paste it here. So now we have the reference of all the buttons. So the first thing that we would have to do is add an event listener to this button, right? So when something is entered here, right, if I enter anything and if I click on this, then I would have to add an event listener, right? So that if there is any change happening to this, I would be able to receive the value. So let's just add an event listener to this button, and we have to do the same for this button as well. Okay, so what is the button reference? This is the button reference, and dot add event listener. And here on the click of this button, what do I want to do? I will call a function. Okay, so we would have to write that function, because I'm not going to write inside this. I will write it separately and I'm going to call it here. And for the clear button also, right? So what is the clear button? This is the clear button, and dot add event listener. And on the click of the clear button, we will call another function, which would be clear all. We can give any name, right? But we would have to implement these two functions. Okay, and then let's just keep it like, a bit here, and let's start implementing these two functions. So the first one is add task. Okay, if you see, right, I'm not using parenthesis here, right? What does this mean? That means the function that I've decided to write is going to be an expression function. Okay, where we declare a variable and then assign a function to that. Okay, so that is why what we'll do here, const and then add task is equals to, right, this is where we are going to write a function, and I will write an arrow function. So this, and then I hope you remember all the syntax. So now what do we need here? We need the value whatever has been entered in the input box. All right, so I'll declare a variable const task text, and then what is the reference for this input? This is the input. Okay, so first of all, I will clear all the trim all the spaces, because if user can enter something like this and then enter a lot of space, right? So I will trim any additional space from here. So task input dot value. Okay, and then dot value dot trim. All right, so I'm going to trim any additional spaces here. I'll also put a comment. Okay, get the user value. So this is the value that user will be entering, right? And after this we have to do our step one, right? Step one of, as in like, implementing the functions. So we'll do create li and span items. Okay, or you can say elements. So here we are first going to create the list item. So list item, and here we'll use the create element method. So create element method, and we have to create a list tag, right? So list tag. Now let's set the text content. So list item dot text content, and text content would be what? Task text, right? So task text, this is the one. So task text, and I'll save this. Now let's just append this list item to the task list, like the UL tag, right? So task list dot append child, and then we'll append list item. So list item, and then we'll save this. If I do this now, I can see the task. All right. Now the way it is getting displayed is not looking very good, right? So let's also add a span tag over here. Okay, so I'm going to, the way we have created the li element, we will create a span tag as well. Okay, so here I will take another one. So const task span, and similarly document dot create element, and we are going to create span tag. All right, and once we have the span tag, what is the, let's also add a class name so that we can style the span tag. Okay, so task span, this, right, what we just created, dot class name, and we are going to give it a class as task text or something like this. We are going to use this in our style file to style the span tag. Okay, so that is why we have added a class name. And then let's also set the text content. What would be the text content for the task span? Whatever is inside the list, right? So task span dot text content, it's going to be the task text. Okay, now let's append the task span to list item. Okay, so list item dot append child, and here we are going to append task span. We'll do this, and let me save this. And after this this, let's just go to the CSS and apply the styling over here. So I'll copy this and I'll go to here and let's just make the flex as 1 and I'll make the cursor as pointer and then text align left. Okay? So text align left. But then we would also have to style the list element. So right now you won't see much styling here. Okay, so if I click on add task, you see. So let's just also style the list element. Okay, list tag. So here we'll take the display as flex and then align items center and I'll take the justify content as space between. Okay, let me save this. So see, now this looks a bit better. Now let's just apply a few more things here. I'll apply a background color. Let's save this. So there's a background color now and I'll also give some padding here. So 12 pixel and 15 pixel from all the corners. Let's also give a border. We'll give the border radius, make it solid, and we are going to give a color to it. And we'll save this. Let's also give the border radius 8 pixel. So the corners are smooth now. And let's give a margin bottom. Okay. So margin bottom, we'll keep it as 10 pixel. So now there's a space and let's also increase the font size to 1.1 REM maybe. Okay. Yeah, this is enough. And then let's give a gap also. Gap of 5 pixel. And if I save this, so if I add another task now, task 2, and if I click on add task, so there's a gap here as well. Okay. And there's a, I mean, everything like, all we did here, margin and then font and gap, all of this got applied. And let's also style the UL, right? Because all these dynamic list items are inside this UL, right? So let's take this and style this also. So here I'll just take UL. I mean, there's only one UL, right? So I can use the tag itself. And here I'll give the list style as none. Okay. And then here, let's also give a padding of 0. If I save this, now this looks much better. Okay. We remove the padding. All right. Now we also need few more things, right? We also want to include the delete button and also that checkbox, right? Using which we are going to mark the task as completed and also that delete button. So let's just do those things as well in JavaScript. So we'll go to JavaScript and then we are going to add the input box. Okay. So here, basically the checkbox, but the type is still going to be input. Okay. So here under span or under list item itself, we can add that. Okay. So let's just take const and then complete checkbox. I'll give it a name and then document dot create element and the type would still be input. Okay. Although it's a checkbox, right? So in HTML, when you create a checkbox, you give the type as input itself. Okay. So the tag that we use for checkbox is input. Okay. So that is why we are giving input here. So now this is there, but we also have to define the type. Okay. So complete checkbox dot type, it has to be checkbox. Okay. So checkbox, otherwise it won't come as checkbox. And after this, let's also give a class name so that we can style it. Okay. So complete checkbox dot class name, and we'll give the class name as complete checkbox and then we'll style it later on. Okay. Okay. So if I do this now and if I click on add task, it's not visible yet because we have to append it, right? So we have not done that yet. So here, let's just do this as well. Okay. So list item dot append child and we also have to append the complete checkbox. So if I save this now, let's check it again if it is coming or not. So now we see the checkbox. But if what do I want here? If I click on the checkbox, the task should have a line through, right? It should get crossed out. So for that, we would have to write the logic. So here we would have to add an event listener on this checkbox. Okay. So complete checkbox dot add event listener. So when somebody clicks on it, basically there will be a change, right? By clicking on the checkbox. So by default, the checkbox is not checked. That means it has a value as false, right? When you click on it, the value flips to true. So basically the kind of event that is happening here is the change event. Okay. It's not a click event. So these are the things that you have to be mindful about. Okay. So add event listener here. We have to mention change and then we'll write a function here. I'm going to use arrow function and we would have to apply the line through. Okay. So list item. Okay. Because on the click of this, we want to apply the line through on the list item, correct? So list item dot, we are going to add a class list. Okay. So class list dot toggle. We are going to flip it, right? So we'll use toggle and then we'll give a name as completed. Okay. So this is done. And then let's just take this value and then style, like let's go to CSS now. Okay. So in CSS, we need two things. Okay. So first of all, we of course need the reference for this checkbox and then the property, right? The class list property that we have added. We will use this property to apply the line through. Okay. To apply that is called a decoration, right? We will apply this onto over the text. So let's just copy this and this is available under li, right? So here we would have to write something like this. So li dot completed. This is the class list property that we have added, right? From here JavaScript. And then where do we have to apply the styling? On the task text, right? And the style that we want to apply is text decoration and that is line through. And and let's also give a color. Okay, so if I click on this, okay, it's not happening. Let me reload this and I'll add a task first. Add task. Now if I click on this, I think we haven't saved this, right? So that is why it's not working. So now if I do this again and if I click on this, see the line through is coming now. Okay, so we had not saved the file. That is why it was not coming up. All right, so this is done. Now let's go ahead and include that delete icon, right, that we want here. So what we can do, we can also, the way we are dynamically creating the checkbox and creating the list tag, right, we also have to create that delete button dynamically itself, right? So here, let me make some space. So here, before appending everything, right, because you have to keep in mind the sequence, right? For example, if I just mess up, so after we have added the span element, right, we are going to add the delete button as well. So here, let me just type it here, delete button. I'll add here const and then delete button. Here, let's just take document dot create element, and under this we are going to create a button tag, right? Because if we are creating dynamically a button, then how does a button looks like in HTML? It has a button tag, right? So that's what we are doing here. So we are creating a button, and then let's give this button a class name, okay, so that we can style it. Dot class name, and here we'll give the name as delete button. All right, and in the text content, right, a delete button has like a cross symbol, right? So we can just set that up here. So delete button dot text content, and we will use the small X letter here. Okay, so this is fine. And then we also have to add an event listener to it, right? So delete button dot, so when somebody clicks on that cross icon, what should happen, right? So delete button dot add event listener, and the event will be clicked because it's a button, right? And then we'll write an arrow function here that what it should do. So here we just want to remove that item from the list, right? So when somebody clicks on the delete icon, we just want to remove this whole thing. So here we will just use list item dot remove function, and that's it. This should work. And let me save this. Now let's just go ahead and let me first see if it won't be styled, but we can style it later, but at least it should be visible here. We have to append it, right? We have not appended it. So here let's also append the delete button. So list item dot append child and then delete button. Now if I save this and check it out, so see, we can see the delete button now. But let's go to CSS file and style it a bit better, okay? So I'll take the class name from here, delete button, and let's just apply some stylings to it. So I'll make the background color different. Let's give the text color as white, and then we'll give border as none, and we'll give border radius as 50% because I want to show it as a circle, okay? That is why I'm giving the border radius as 50%. Let's give it a width because it's looking a bit bigger, so I'll just reduce it to 35 pixels, and then let's also give it a height of 35 pixels, and then we'll give the display as flex, and let's align items center and then justify content center so that we can set the position in the center as in on its own space, okay? And then cursor will make it pointer. Let's also change the font size, okay? So font size, I'll give it as 1.2 rem, and then at last we'll change the font weight to bold, so bold. And if I save this, you see all the styles got applied to this. All right, and we can also change the hover, right? So if someone clicks, so right now it's showing as orange, right? But let's change this to some other color because it's taking the button style from this one, right? We had this one, so it's taking this right now. So we are going to change this to something else here, and then over we'll change the color, okay? So background color, right? So now it should be a shade of red. All right, so this looks fine now. Now let's just work on the, so here if I click on this, it's getting deleted, right? So it's working. So now let's just do few more things. Let's just also work on the clear all button. So if I click on clear all button, then also everything, like, whatever has been added should get deleted. All right, and before that, there's one more thing that I want to do. So every time, if you observe, if I type a task and click on add task, see, this is not getting emptied, right? I want to clear the input every time a task is added so that user don't have to, like, clear it manually. So for that, what we can do is, after we are appending everything, we can just make the task input dot value empty. Okay, so is equals to, and then we'll just make it empty. Let me save this and then show it to you. So if I now click on task one, the moment I click on add task, this should get emptied out, okay, here. So now see, this is empty, right? So this is fine. Now let's proceed with the clear button. Okay, so for clear button, we had this function, right? So when somebody clicks on this clear all button, we have to implement this function for that. So here, let me just const, and this, inside this, we are going to implement an arrow function, and then here all we have to do is we have to completely remove everything, right? So for that task list, we can just clear out the inner HTML itself, okay, here, and then we'll just do this and save this. So now let's just add few tasks and check this works out. So I've added this. Let me add one more, this. And then if I do clear all, see, it's clearing out everything. All right. So, all right, I think we are done here. So let's just run this in the, I'll increase the browser window, and that's it. We should be fine now. So here, let's also change the background color. Okay. So I'll go back to the CSS and I'm going to make it black. Okay. And then I'll save this. Now, if you see here, it should all the, all the functionalities that we have added, they should work, right? So if I add task one, let's say task one, and if I click on add task, it's getting added. If I click add another task, task two, it's getting added as well. And if I mark any task as completed, a line through comes in, right? And if I click on cross, that is getting deleted. And if I click on clear all, everything gets deleted, right? So I think that's pretty much. And that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next one.